On today's episode, Josh and I are here back to talk about the Zion Williamson situation. We've waited a little bit just to make sure that we're fully aware of what's going on. We really don't know as much as anybody else does. We just want to talk about, we've not really talked about it so far. We just really want to go through it and make sure that we're on the forefront of the Zion Williamson discussion. As well as we'll talk about College Hoops Corner. We'll call it College Hoops Madness this week as teams 1 through 6 and number 9 all lost on the same day. Still can't figure out how that happened. We're going to try to break it down. As well as somehow, some way, I'm still down too much in trivia, but plenty of time. We'll see if I can make up a little bit of a lead that Josh has. Next.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Two Pointers podcast. I'm Josh.
And I'm Trevor.
And we are here back with kind of a weird mid-season podcast. The NBA is now coming off the All-Star break, and surely it'll start heating up soon as we head down the stretch with teams finishing their last month-ish of games. Luckily, every good college basketball team in the country lost on Saturday, so that gives me and Trevor something genuine to talk about, as well as covering whatever's happening with Zion for whatever we know. Doesn't look good, but we'll talk about that. And yeah, that's where we're at. How are you feeling, Trevor?
I am feeling great. I would say favorite day of the week, but it's for the second week in a row. Trying to punt and do this on a Tuesday is very different, but I am totally fine with it. We're recording here Tuesday, March 1st. I am feeling great. Two very interesting conversations to have for sure. The Zion, I'm just going to call it situation. We have no perfect adjective for it, but I think that's
There's
the
nothing
word.
else to call it, really.
I'll get the shameless plug out of the way really quick. At Two Pointers on Twitter, Facebook.com/the Two Pointers Podcast, and TikTok and Instagram are both at the Two Pointers Podcast. Also, coming up really shortly, I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but this is my kind of hidden plug, hidden sneak peek. Be on the lookout on the website. We teased it very, very shortly at the end of last week. Just wanted to make sure you guys are aware that we do have the website up and running. Keep it tabbed, keep it bookmarked. We will have some really fresh, new, fun content that you wouldn't hear on this hour podcast coming very shortly, so keep an eye out for that. And lastly, I guess we'll talk about College Hoops Corner in a few minutes, but holy cow, the tournament's almost here. Some of the conference tournaments already started. I'm just in like go mode when it comes to college basketball. This is the most I personally have ever watched in a season in probably the last 5 years. And just maybe that will reflect a better bracket. I do remember doing decently well other than a couple of terrible picks. So I'm excited to see our bracket, get our fans engaged in that. So anyway, Zion's unfortunately and fortunately, I guess, the topic of conversation. So I just wanted to open it up with a question for Josh, and we'll kind of just break it down. As of right now, we know, obviously, or what we think we know so far, is the fact that he may have a second surgery, right? So that's really people, might be getting caught up, and we'll go over the nitty-gritty of this story. But
I heard that he was having another surgery.
I don't know if it's 100%, and that's the part I wanted to try to confirm, and I couldn't find anything. If it was 100%, that was what was happening. But as of right now, that's the plan, I think. But my question for you in relation to that is, how many games do you think Zion has played in his career so far? Drafted in 2019.
65.
Wow, you went way lower. I'm going to give you one more guess.
Oh, okay.
This is not for any points or anything. This is just a sheer, there's a point to this for me.
107.
You were closer with 65. The answer is 85. And I say
more
that,
than one full season.
I say that without context because out of 206 total games, shout out to StatMuse for the ability to see how many games guys have played, and they're bringing out very shortly how many games guys have not played in their career. I saw earlier today, but he's missed 121 games out of his NBA career so far. That is the reason I brought it up, is because that is such an alarming number that we've honestly gone almost a month now and kind of just let this situation sit awry and not really touched on it. But I think it's definitely here. We're ready to discuss this because it is concerning.
We've let the situation sit for several months.
I guess my first I don't really have like that was my main question. It was more of a trivia, but like my question for you is this going to be the first situation where we see a guy get traded before he signs an extension with a team?
What do you mean the first situation? A guy gets traded before he signs an extension. Plenty of
Very
guys have gotten
rarely,
traded before they signed extensions.
but I guess number one picks is I guess more so what I'm referring
Number
to,
one picks.
but or guys of his.
An Anthony
Com-
Bennett situation.
yeah,
uh,
no, I mean that's where we're headed. I think that's why it's worth mentioning. So I guess are you there yet in terms of are we ready to just get rid of Zion if we're the Pelicans?
yeah. Yeah. Sooner better than later. And it sucks for New Orleans because you won the lottery, both figuratively and literally. Them hopping up to get him and probably was one of the most important drafts in the past several years. And figuratively, you got a franchise changer right after your franchise changing star demanded to trade out and went to LA. More injury problems. Yeah, it really sucks, but it's like it kind of felt clear on lottery night he didn't want to go to New Orleans. When they won the lottery, he was laughing. I don't remember if you remember watching the broadcast, but he was clearly rooting for New York to get the pick and was kind of laughing at the ridiculousness of having to go to New Orleans. Once again, I'm on New Orleans side. I'm a small market team guy, but it kind of sucks for them. But the sooner they trade him, the better return they're going to get because he ain't coming back.
All right, so you went there before I did, and I'm glad you did the New York angle. Right now, if you're New York, if you're James Dolan, is it even worth giving him?
What are you offering?
Not even offering.
What do the Knicks have to offer? Even though that's the thing.
So that's the problem. If you're the Knicks, like your best case scenario is he walks in free agency, but that's not going to happen. That New Orleans would have
But
to
is he
completely
gonna?
relinquish.
The Knicks can't be certain. He wanted to go to the Knicks because that was at the time kind of the flavor of the month.
Yeah,
They were the biggest market that had a chance to draft him. That was that low.
correct.
There's no guarantee he's going to go up to New York in a free agency market. Like he's going to automatically pick the Knicks over everyone else.
I 100% agree because we've seen it fail for them, but they've also set themselves up in this position the last couple of years with a lot of these 1 year, second year team option type contracts every couple of years. They've done very un-Knicks things to be financially prepared for a move like that. I'm not saying he's the one that does it. What I am saying that is I think it's very interesting. It's not just the Knicks. You brought up the Knicks first, so I just wanted to address them as if you're James Dolan, do you do that?
Nope.
My question right now, if you're any team, like what is your thought process going into a signing contract negotiation with Zion's team and you're like,
A trade
what are
situation
you
or
worth?
signing contract
That's
situation?
the part where I'm
Define.
trying
What
to
are you
figure
asking?
out.
What are you asking?
What I'm trying to figure out is what is his true value on the market in the next 2 years?
As a
Because
trade or as a signing a contract? That's what I'm asking you to clarify. You said two different things.
I, that's the part I'm struggling with.
You can
The
pick either
Pelicans.
one. Just pick
Okay,
one.
we'll go with trade first because the Pelicans have to capitalize on his value for
Okay.
whatever his value is. If you're the Pelicans before his restrictive, because at this rate, no, the reason I'm confused on trade versus whatever is because I think we're to a point where like there's a scenario where he completely just like the Pelicans can't get anything for him, and then he walks. Like they relinquish his rights at that point
Yep.
because there's nothing they could do. That's what I'm getting at. We can address both, but I don't think the trade market's even worth talking about right now because I think we're closer to a scenario where he walks out the door.
Even
That's
though
the
he has
problem.
another year on his contract next
Well,
season.
after the contract's over, of course.
Um, so his trade value right now, I think, is whatever year 3 Greg Oden's trade value was.
Mm. Mm-mm-mm.
As much as it hates to say, that's the closest comparison. Greg Oden wasn't Zion, but Greg Oden was a baller who, without injuries, would have been a dominant big man force in the NBA.
This was before I did heavy draft. Obviously, it was a little before our time. That was like right around the time we both started really watching basketball. He was a guy that I would have looked at the way I look at draft now. I would have looked at him and went, he has the potential to be a all-time great big man. That would
Yes.
have been one of my ceiling comparisons. I would have been like, he could have been David Robinson. Period.
The Trailblazers picked him over Kevin Durant. Without the knowledge of future injuries, no one thought that was a mistake. That's how
Correct.
good Greg Oden was. And Kevin Durant was scoring 30 like all the time at Texas. No one thought it was a mistake to go Greg Oden instead of Kevin Durant. That's how good he was. In hindsight, even a healthy Greg Oden, I don't know if he would have been as good as Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's one of the greatest players of all time now. But that's what we're looking at with Zion. But there's bigger concerns beyond his injuries. If I'm a team, I'm not willing to give anything for him. There's so many question marks and problems.
That's
beyond just his health. There are many problems.
That's what I was getting at, because I'm concerned beyond the fact that his trade value is so low that's why you were like, pick a trade or pick free agency. Like, I don't think it matters. I think we're to the point where, let's just go to contract for a second. I think there's a point where, and I'm going to hold up two pieces of paper for the visual example for Josh. You have contract A here, where you have a team that gives him the max that the Pelicans aren't going to give him. But a team goes, I think we see the Zion potential. They're like, we're going to give you that rookie max extension, whatever it is. I think it's like a team that's not the Pelicans would be 4-year, whatever. Say 4-year, 120. I know it's not that, obviously, with the salary cap. And then you have a team that goes, here's a 2-year team option. Here's a 1-year, $10 million. I'm just throwing out $10 million because at that point he is worth something. He's obviously one of the greatest young potential guys in the league. And you go, here's we're going to have the full control. You got a year to play into your role. Mm-hmm. You've got a year to prove yourself. I'm holding up 2 for a reason. Yeah. I think they both fail. I think there's both. I mean, obviously the team option there is going to be great for the team, but like I think ultimately that both situations end up in flames.
I mean, so if he says to New Orleans that he wants out, he's going to walk. You have 29 teams willing to take a 1-year flyer on Zion Williamson.
Right.
You have 29 teams in a line to take that 1-year flyer.
At that point, what are they getting?
Trading is not something I'd touch with a 10-foot pole unless you are a franchise that basically has nothing and is desperate. I don't even know if any franchise is in that terrible of a situation to try that right now.
I'm going to give you 2.
I really don't even think any of them. I will give an argument.
I agree with you, but I'm going to give you 2 for the sheer sake of I knew you were going to say that. I came prepared. I did my homework because I knew you were going to say that. And I agree with you, by the way, to be completely clear. Portland's completely and utterly trying to rebuild around Damian Lillard. And Anthony Simons is off the table. Obviously, they like him. Is Portland willing to give Nazir Little or even a Yusuf Nurkic in that situation?
You see, this is Zion Williamson. Those trade offers aren't big enough.
So his value is bigger than those 2.
In a theoretical trade, this is what New Orleans is going to ask for. You got to understand what New Orleans is going to be asking for. New Orleans isn't trading him for $1, like $5 in a bag of chips. No offense to Yusuf Nurkic and Nasir Little, but
that's fine. But that's what he's worth right now. Is that correct? I mean, the Pelicans are going to ask all they want.
So there's this difference. There's this huge gap between what he's worth right now. In present form, he's worth nothing.
Correct.
His potential
is worth more than that.
That's like one of the biggest trade packages in NBA history. That's the problem.
That's, I think, where we disagree. I think he's going to get on the market. People are going to give him offers like Nurkic and Little.
But he won't get traded.
Yeah, Pelicans aren't going to take that. But if you're the Pelicans in that final year, you're not going to let him walk. You'd rather take Nurkic than that. So I'm glad that you declined the Simons or whatever, Nazir Little, Nurkic deal. Because I think, and this is, by the way, this is David Griffin.
You got to also understand that the Pelicans have bird rights, have him as an RFA. Not bird rights. They have him as an RFA. So they don't have to let him walk if they
correct. Don't. The 4th year is technically not his fifth. It's not his final year. That's understandable.
All they have to do is any other team that submits an offer, if they match the money, he has to stay in New Orleans. That's the way the system works. Even if he says he's not going to play, they still have the rights to him as a basketball player. They have the rights to his employment. And he would have a choice between not playing or playing. For them, it's the same as like when a guy gets drafted. And I think Michael Crabtree did this. If you remember Michael Crabtree, just grab a name from the past. He got drafted and he refused to sign his contract. He couldn't go anywhere else. He just couldn't play. Couldn't go play for anybody else.
So the Portland one was bait, because I think the one that's more realistic is the De'Aaron Fox situation.
Nope.
Right now, neither are happening. I'm giving you the two that make sense.
Kings are desperate. They're not that desperate.
They're desperate enough.
I don't think.
If they look at the table, they have to. First of all, they're the Kings. Let me go ahead and get that slander out of the way. They're the Kings, so they absolutely would consider it. The reason I think it's mind-boggling to me that they wouldn't at least have that conversation with, again, remember who we're dealing with here. This is David Griffin. I don't see a scenario
Jerry
where
Krause? Sorry.
Yeah, right. I don't think there's a scenario where they don't at least consider the fact that they get off De'Aaron Fox's contract, which right now is one of the worst contracts in the NBA. And they look at, and I understand they'll be point guardless, but they understand the risk when they got rid of Tyrese.
No, they're not point guardless. They still have Davion Mitchell. They would. You say get off the. I want you to just pause for a second. Get off the De'Aaron Fox contract. Get potentially a worse one.
Totally understandable. Upside of De'Aaron Fox and upside of Zion is the gap for me that the Kings consider, and that's what you were talking about. If Nurkic and Little are not enough, De'Aaron Fox is definitely enough.
Well, if I'm at that point, the Pelicans are going to come in, they want De'Aaron Fox. You got to match money, so there's going to be somebody else coming from the Pelicans, probably like an Ingram or something like that.
Not even. It's like you can make a Steven Adams contract work.
Okay, so say Adams, but
who cares?
You're going to be looking at Fox. You're going to be looking at getting another young player, maybe throwing in a DiVincenzo and some picks. And at that point, is it worth trading Fox, DiVincenzo, several draft picks for maybe he'll play?
Again, I'm going to throw this is the Kings we're talking about wrench in this, because at the end of the day, the Kings are willing to do stupid things. I'm just going to say it. And at the end of the day, not saying this trade is stupid. What I am saying is that at the end of the day, both sides are willing to make moves that are desperate to keep jobs. And at the end of the day, if Zion is somebody that you don't feel like is going to be able to build your team around if you're the Pelicans, I'm not sure De'Aaron Fox is – I'm sure that De'Aaron Fox is probably the highest offer you're going to get as of right now's value. Again, all of this conversation could be completely outdated. For the listeners, if you're listening to this a year after, let's say, pre-trade deadline next year, so like 9 months from now, and Zion has played and he's averaging his career average again of 25, 7, and 4, and he looks great, so be it. But can I tell you why I brought that up, and can I tell you the full circle moment here? Is leaving him out of season ticket vouchers was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. Period.
About in what way? Got to clarify more.
I forget, people might not know this. Sorry, you're right. So he rumored, at least screenshots, people from the Pelicans season ticket emails, that Zion Williamson, when they were pitching their marketed stars, the Brandon Ingrams of the world, the Jonas Valanciunas of the world, the Herb Jones of the world, Devontae Grahams even, Zion Williamson was not included in their season ticket promotions in any way. That was the part for me where I was like, there is some form of complete relationship and love lost there. We know that, right? Obviously with him not playing. But I think there's a scenario there. I don't think he plays another game for the Pelicans again.
I think it's tough to find what we know. Let's branch into some of the other problems with Zion Williamson, because I talked about that I think there are non-health-related issues that are problems. Well, some of them may be a health-related issue. The rumor was Zion Williamson, despite being injured, came into training camp substantially bigger than he had been in the past. I'm not going to try to speculate on what he weighs. A lot of that goes on. A lot of it is really hate-filled and negative stuff towards Zion Williamson. He looks bigger. When you see him on the side, on the bench in some of the commercials he's done, he doesn't look like the 285 he was last year. That's just out there. Maybe he's packed on a lot more muscle. Probably not a good idea, from my opinion, given his lower extremity injuries, that even if it is more muscle, he should probably lose some of it for a health and playing basketball standpoint. The other issue, JJ Redick, teammate of Zion Williamson several years ago, ripped him to shreds on national television um, as a teammate. He said that he thought Zion was detached. He didn't talk to guys, was a bad teammate, not a leader. Called out how horrible it looks that he has not spoken. At this point, we don't even know if by today that he's even spoken to CJ McCollum, who's supposed to be his partner on the team.
So glad you said that. The only reason we do know that he has, as of this week, was that CJ was interviewed as part of something with the Players Association that he's a part of, being the president, of course. And someone had asked him, reporters are always sliding questions in that are relevant to them when you're talking about something completely different. And he was asking, he did confirm, in no detail, he did confirm that they spoke. But this was, middle of All-Star game craze, whatever. It was probably very brief, but we know nothing about the conversation. That's all we know.
He's not invested in New Orleans, and it doesn't look good. Like it's unprofessional. And I get we're talking about a 21-year-old here. We're not talking about a 21-year-old. He's an adult, but he's not like an adult, right? Like he should be a junior in college, senior in college, right now. If we're talking from an educational standpoint. It's not because you got to think. We talked about trade and value to other teams. If I'm any team, any coach, any GM, I'm thinking, okay, the potential's there. Say he gets healthy. He basically wasn't invested and didn't try because he didn't want to be in New Orleans. How do I know he's going to care here or anywhere?
Completely doubles down on my point that there's the love lost there on both sides, because that you highlighted the Zion angle of it, of the concerns with JJ Redick's comments, and then the season ticket part with the Pelicans, and then the discourse, and the part we didn't bring up as well was the discourse with him and his people. And the whole reason Josh and I even came to the conclusion to talk about this was, as of this week, NBC Sports reported that Zion's camp, quote unquote, whoever that may be, has reported that he does not like David Griffin, period. That's where we are. That's where it got. That was kind of the domino that was like,
owner or GM is Griffin. I can't remember.
GM in this case, yeah, GM.
Well, that's not super shocking,
right?
Because there was the report in the offseason that Zion and other players in New Orleans referred to him as Jerry, meaning Jerry Krause, the Bull GM that broke apart the team that won 6 titles.
It also is interesting, though, but his camp was basically in radio silence for the last 90 days. And then that's the comment post All-Star break that we come out with. Not a great look if you're either party.
I will point this out. We do know in the past that the comments from Zion's camp are not always his.
Correct.
Zion's camp Zion made comments after declaring for the NBA draft that he didn't really want to leave Duke, that he loved being there, but his parents and advisors advised him and kind of pushed him in the direction of going. Those were comments from Zion Williamson back after his declaring for the draft. He was like, I didn't really want to leave, but
I think it's interesting. That's a good point. This is also pre-NIL, so I think if NIL exists, I think he probably stays at Duke another year.
He enjoyed it. He enjoyed it. College.
He could have made just as much
money. Gone another year in college. He still would have been the number 1 pick the next year.
Correct. So that is actually a great segue of how I wanted to. This is the last thing I had, and I wanted to bring this up. Is hindsight's 2020. It's a little early, but Ja Morant is the only reason that this draft class is even remotely, going to be looked at in some form of positive light in the next 5 to 10 years. I just want to really quickly go over the lottery with you and basically address how bad this draft could end up being because of how big of a flop. And it's the Kevin Durant
year
thing.
3.
I understand, and I'm just
like that's really early to start.
I know.
Saying
no, we're gonna at least talk about it.
I don't judge draft class if the guys haven't even made it through their first contract yet.
Totally understandable.
About 20-year-olds.
I want to see how this conversation is impacted in the future. So the reason I bring it up, you'll see in just a second. So
Drew Timme from Gonzaga that we're going to talk about in a second is older than these players.
Totally understandable. And he might not even be a second-round pick. So we're talking Zion at 1 to New Orleans. Ja, really quickly here for those that might not know. Memphis, obviously. RJ to New York. Hunter to Atlanta, Garland to Cleveland, Culver to Phoenix, traded to Minnesota there, Kobe White to the Bulls, Jackson Hayes going to the Pelicans, Rui Hachimura to the Wizards, Cam Reddish to, ironically, Hawks from Dallas, Cam Johnson to Minnesota, PJ Washington to Charlotte, Hero to Miami, and Langford to Boston. I bring that up. I bring that up because if we're redrafting that, like, where does Zion go? Like, I know we're talking about this early. Does he go 2 with Darius? With what we know now,
Mm-hmm.
Darius Garland behind
Still
him.
goes 2. Job 1, Zion 2.
R.J. Barrett, Tyler Hero, and even if you go outside of the top, you have Matisse Thybulle, who went later, and you also have guys like Jordan Poole, Keldon Johnson, Kevin Porter. So you have guys behind him. Like, obviously, I'm not saying they're better than Zion. What I'm saying is it's concerning that if he doesn't hit any form of this expectation that his potential is, this draft class is concerning. Like, it's good. Don't get me wrong. We were looking at it right now going, yeah, there's a couple of these guys, but, like, John Morant obviously goes 1. We know that. John Morant goes 1, right? Yeah. But I'm just not sure Zion's the second best player in this draft, knowing what we know now based on injuries and how it goes. It's just so concerning to me how top heavy this draft is. And like Garland went 5 to the perfect place he could have went. Who, by the way, at the time had Colin Sexton. Right. Yeah. Who, by the way, had Colin Sexton. So if you're New York, who would have the 3rd pick in this draft, who are you taking? Well, if you're Memphis, if New Orleans takes Ja, if you're Memphis, you take Darius. That's what I'm getting at is like this draft right now, like we're really, and obviously this is super early. I'm just bringing up the fact that like Zion was the big marquee thing in this draft and he's the big thing. And this is the great Greg Oden, Kevin Durant thing. I get it. This is the perfect scenario while John Morant is literally walking into the role of Kevin Durant if we're comparing these 2 draft classes. But what I'm getting at is just how tumultuous this draft could end up being if we don't see a sliver of hope from a guy like Zion, as well as some guys like DeAndre Hunter. Hold on, Hero, DeAndre Hunter, who struggled with injuries. Hero, who went late lottery. Glad you mentioned that. Jackson Hayes has been completely and utterly.
Everyone knew that was a bad pick. At the time, everyone was like, that's awful.
At 8, by the way.
Everyone was like, ugh.
Culver, who obviously they drafted Anthony Evers next year, so that's situational. But Romeo Langford, Sekou Doumbouya, PJ Washington's been great. I'll give him credit. I think PJ Washington goes 5 in this draft if you redraft it. Like it's insane. Like
Cam Johnson, key role player on a Western Conference championship team. What were other ones you named?
Reddish, Hachimura.
Hachimura's still developing in just kind of a bad Wizard situation right now. He showed a lot of talent in his first couple of years. Barrett continues to get better in New York. As much as he gets ragged on, he's getting better.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just
Garland's
bringing up
a stud.
I'm just bringing up the sheer potential this draft was supposed to have had and how concerning it is looking at it.
It was considered a top 3 draft. Like it was considered a 3-player draft. It wasn't considered a super high potential draft.
It
was considered Zion, Ja, RJ, and then there's a drop.
You have to look at the grand scheme of things though and go, you have to know that New York considers taking someone else, knowing what we know now. They take Garland.
Yeah, I mean, like if you go in and say, yeah, this player is only going to play 40% of the games for the next 3 years, duh. Like it's not a question that you can really come in and talk about. Yeah, hindsight's 2020.
Either way, I just wanted to bring up how concerning the draft class was. Obviously, it's early, and I want to readdress this draft class in the future when we do.
The Trailblazers would never take Greg Oden if they knew he was going to get hurt over and over again.
I'm more so referring.
But it's not something you can know.
No, I'm not referring to whole career either. I'm referring to just what we know in 3 years. How concerning this draft, or how different this draft could be shaken up. Shall we? Let's go with madness, because I think it's perfect to say it. We're recording this ironically on March 1st, and to quote the great John Rothstein, we sleep in May. So,
best month of the year. That's right, everyone. It's mine and Trevor's birthday. This month. That's
yeah, we completely neglected to mention it last year, so we'll make it a little bit more of a point.
Month of the year. I love March.
I did too.
We're in high gear now. Like This is the last week. This is last week of the regular season, and also the first week of conference tournaments. So we're fully rolling now. Let's see who the Cinderellas are. The little schools that are getting in, the heavy hitters. There's probably a bigger field of teams that could win the national title this year than many years in the past. I think it's going to be crazy, upset filled. There's probably no predicting it. We'll try to anyway.
The Atlantic Sun, or the yeah, did I say that right? The Atlantic Sun, I think that's right. The Patriot League, and I believe oh gosh, it's leaving me now. Whatever conference Liberty's in, have all started their conference tournaments. So obviously, sounds early, but it's March 1st, so who cares? It's March.
Little schools is normal.
Of course, yeah.
They usually start around this time.
It's still crazy to think that, like, obviously Carolina Duke hasn't even happened yet. So that'll be on the 5th, and then Selection Sunday is the following Sunday after that, after the conference tournaments conclude. So.
The 13th.
So the reason we're here. First of all, do we know if this is the first time this has ever happened where the top 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5?
Yeah,
and
5, 6.
5, 6. Got it.
First time 1 through 6 lost on the same day. First time that 7 top 10 teams lost on the same day.
Was it the first time 1 through 5? It sounds like it wasn't. I don't think it was. 1 through 5.
Yes, it was the first time 1 through 5 as well.
All right. Well, I'll quickly go over
all on the road. Break this down. All road games.
All right. Which is the grain of salt.
Lots of court rushes yesterday.
Yeah.
Saturday.
Great grain of salt there, because all of these were on the road. But then again, you have to be, if you're one of these, and I'm going to read them now, if you're one of these 7 teams, you have to be able to not lose these games in, let's say, looking at my watch here, about a week and a half. So, for those that might not get it, we talked about how close March Madness is. That's what I'm referring to. I'll go backwards really quick. Number 9, Texas Tech lost to TCU 69-66. Kentucky, concerningly, they lost to Arkansas, who's probably the hottest team in the country right now. Number 6 lost 75-73. Kansas lost to Baylor 80-70. Number 10 Baylor, number 5 Kansas. Number 4 Purdue lost to Michigan State, another great sleeper team I can't wait to discuss next week. Lost 68-65. A lot of these are close too. Like, actually, all of these are close except for 2 and 1. Auburn, like I said, looks like Auburn lost to Tennessee 67-62. Tennessee's playing the giant slayer role this year. They've beaten 3 top 15 teams on the road out of the 5 they've played. Number 2, Arizona lost to Colorado 79-63. And then Gonzaga, the unbeatable, the conference might not be that good coming into the year, and realizing that they might have 4 teams make the tournament. Yes, Gonzaga, the Western Coast Conference favorites, lost 67-57 to number 23 St. Mary's, who, by the way, was up.
It's only 3 is going to make it.
San Francisco,
on the West
maybe,
San Francisco make it. Yes. Yeah.
BYU, San Francisco, St. Mary.
BYU going to make it?
I don't know. It's a good conversation to have. We'll see. But no, at one point St. Mary's was up by 15.5. So in the first half. So first thoughts or takeaways or your tournament impact or whatever you want to throw at me for this 6 that we just talked about. Or 7.
My first thought is I would have loved to have been in that arena for that St. Mary's Gonzaga game. That place was rocking.
Super small.
When they didn't watch the game, that was something.
They came.
It's a 3,000 person arena.
Wow!
Every single person in that arena was screaming at the top of their lungs for like 40 minutes. So
yeah. To add on top of the madness, talking about the 3,000 seat arena, I'm going to get this in only because it's hilarious. But I got a chance to see our local Campbell Fighting Camels this same timing on this past weekend play another North Carolina team, NCA&T, and I believe I think I'd be shocked if Gore Arena has more than 3,000 seats or less than. They probably have 1,000 seats, but you can look it up. I could care less.
More than 1,000 seats.
I'd be shocked.
1,000 seats isn't a lot.
But they were courtside seats. Talking about people yelling, it was like an empty arena, and it felt like A&T was like Duke. It like felt like this environment where you could tell it was like Campbell could win their conference tournament, and like Campbell's actually not that bad, and it was just really fun. We're talking about upsets, and Campbell was clearly the worst team in that situation against A&T, who by the way made the tournament a few years ago. So Yeah, it's just always fun to represent your local teams. Anytime you get a floor seat in college basketball, the atmosphere and stuff.
So
It was a great time.
Campbell Gore
Gore
Arena
Arena.
has 3,095 seats.
Wow. Okay. So that
So
gives me
the same
perspective.
size as St. Mary's.
That gives me perspective on the St. Mary's thing. Because imagine Gonzaga rolls into our local little town. Can you imagine that? Like that's
Well,
the
imagine
scale.
first of all that Campbell is ranked 23rd in the country to
That's
begin
true.
with,
That's
and
true.
then Gonzaga rolls into town, and number one does it
Big
every
deal.
year.
Big deal to these
Yeah.
kids. Does this, and I guess look, we're talking about the fun part of this. I'm going to ask you the burning questions. Obviously, does this tarnish or blemish your impression of Gonzaga going into the tournament as a
No,
resounding one seed? I didn't think so.
no, not a bit.
I do think it
St.
a
Mary's is
little bit.
very good. This usually happens to Gonzaga around this time. It tarnishes their unbeatable thing, which we kind of lost that anyway. Um, it shows they can be beaten by a team that has their best game, which is just usually true. This is one of those classic Gonzaga one seeds, maybe not one overall. Don't ask me to name another one overall. I'm not going to do it.
Say
Maybe not.
Adam Morrison years, maybe.
No, I mean, this is just like their team in 2017 with Shemit Karnowski and Zach Collins and
Yeah.
those guys.
I I think it's not just you bring up the best game thing with St. Mary's. I think it just shows two things. It also shows that like Gonzaga can be beat if somebody is like lockdown defending team,
Yep.
and that's what St. Mary's is. St. Mary's is a smother you, make you uncomfortable, make a guy like, and I'm just this is obviously he's not on
And
the team.
slow you down.
Make a guy like Jalen Suggs last year was like impossible to make a mistake. He was like a perfect when it comes to just moving the ball and being a playmaker. But like a team like St. Mary's is going to force a guy like him on a team like Gonzaga. I'm just using that as the last year's example to where he's going to make a mistake. And obviously Gonzaga they don't have that ball dominant leader. They have a lot of really good talent, and I think they have a really good team. But I think if you are a trap heavy, I'm just using West Virginia as an example, the token example. If you're West Virginia and you meet them in the Sweet 16, you're nervous if you're Gonzaga's fans. Like you're really nervous. A team like that can make Gonzaga move.
It's more than it's a slow you down thing. The biggest thing St. Mary's did, they played a stout defense, but you can do that in different ways. St. Mary's used the whole shot clock
Yep.
every time they had a possession.
Yep.
They did a lot of disrupting Gonzaga's rhythm, trying to cut into passing lanes. They'd cut into passing lanes and then they would kill clock. And then they would work and they'd get a good shot, usually score a basket. Gonzaga would try to get in, you'd frustrate them, get the ball, kill clock again. And it creates this slow, disjointed game where Gonzaga is never able to actually get moving. They're a high-powered offense, and they couldn't actually ever get out of the gates, basically.
Yeah, I am excited to see who St. Mary's matches up. I'm also excited to see where their ultimate like seeding ends up being because I think they're a
Like
good
right now, they look
team,
like a 5 or a 6.
which seems so high, but like
No, they're
they're a
good.
good team. They're good. They
They're
really
good.
are. I do want to look at just I haven't looked at the box score since we started talking about this the other day, talking about what we might talk about. But I wanted to highlight too that St. Mary's uh, just straight up out rebounded Gonzaga. Like just straight out like they were able to control every obviously important facet of the game. Don't get me wrong. Like that's the point we're making here is that they played a great game,
Mhm.
but they also
It's also to be pointed
shot,
out, Brew Timmy did not score any points in the first half.
which can't happen if you're
He had
Gonzaga.
0 at
Period.
the half.
Period. Can't happen. But no, St. Mary's also you mentioned played best game. Like they defensively obviously held Gonzaga to 36% from the field, 33 from three, 88 from the line. But they themselves shot 44, 37, and 87 respectively. So shoot really well, play really good defense. Perfect recipe to beat a team like Gonzaga, which we know is not unbeatable, obviously. So
Who would you say of the 7 losers, who was whose reputation going into the tournament was tarnished the most for you, and who was tarnished the least? Like which loss are you least worried about?
it's a good question, and I have an answer prepared. So number, and I'm just going to be completely bullish on this. I have been for months. I don't believe in this Arizona team. I just
Nope.
don't. I don't. And I knew we were going to agree on that, and I hate you for saying that because I wanted you to be like, yeah, they're whatever. I don't like this Arizona team, period. I don't
Nope.
care if it's Colorado. I don't care if they lost to Oregon. I don't care if they lost to Gonzaga. I don't care.
You love Oregon.
I don't
Every
like
time we say good Pac-12, you're just like, Oregon.
Oregon's like one of those teams. Like they're kind of like in that Carolina range right now, where if Carolina makes the tournament, like they got to win a couple games, whatever. Oregon's like on that really weird cusp right now. If they get in, they're like that UCLA last year. Like they're like a kill you in the backcourt team. Oregon's better than I give them credit. So, or sorry, I give them more credit than I should. Anyway, I completely 100% don't trust this Arizona team. I get it. I'm a hater, but that loss hurts. The team that I am least concerned about, I'm actually going to give you two, and they play each other. I am least concerned about Kentucky because I ultimately think that they are a better basketball team than they showed in that game against Arkansas, which, by the way, was a 2-point game. And I think Arkansas, like, talking about blemish and, like, team I'm, like, super high on, like, they're the hottest team in the country. They just beat Kentucky. In Kentucky. Like, it's a thing that most people in the last 15 years haven't been able to do consistently. So I'm super, super high on the teams, in this case, that played each other, Kentucky and Arkansas. I also just like, we mentioned preseason, like what guards can do for you in the NCAA tournament. I just like Kentucky's guard play, which is why I'm not concerned because Arkansas is just fast. They are just like, they make
40 minutes of hell.
They make me feel like I'm out of breath just watching them go back and forth. And I'm on the couch. So, those, to answer your question, that would be my answer. I'm not concerned about Auburn. I'm not concerned about Purdue. I'm not kind of concerned about Kansas. That was my other choice, was Kansas. And then Texas Tech. I don't really know what. I think they're like the Providence of the not East Coast part of the country, I guess you could say. But they're winning games. They're winning in the close games. So Ken Pom just doesn't like them. I can't figure it out.
Well, sorry, I'll give so I had basically the same answers as you.
I knew it.
Arizona got destroyed by a not good basketball team. Colorado is not going to make the tournament. They're not very good, and they just got blown out of the water. Arizona had kind of snuck up on me for being that high in the first place. I was like, what? I think it hurts Arizona. I'm not worried about Kentucky because Arkansas is that good. They really are. They call the offense 40 minutes of hell. That's why I said it before. They will run you until you collapse, basically. They are just going to run all over you, and that's going to get people. The trouble is that style can backfire in the tournament sometimes if the other team has a good shooting night running against you, or if you don't hit the shots. The funny thing about Providence, you brought up, Ken Pom has the statistic called luck. It's basically the measure is like it's adjusted offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency, the difference between those, and how often you win games. Out of every team in Division I college basketball, Providence is first in luck in Division I college basketball. They apparently somehow win the ball bounces their way in every close game.
Which eventually has to come to an end, right?
Right, yeah.
That's the point I bring up because that's the story of March, right? Are we going to sit here in a week and a half and look down at our pieces of paper and go, holy crap, we have Providence in the Elite Eight because they have to get things to bounce their way, right? Dude, I told you 2 months ago I couldn't believe it, and here we are. They're number 11.
It comes back to on the other side of this, the old adage is, better be lucky than good.
Right.
Now Providence is lucky.
Do you know who, by the way, you didn't look like you were reading from something when you said that. Do you know who's number 2 on that? I did see this today.
UNCW.
Shout out to North Carolina. So, just the state as a whole. We're just going to give our state a shout out. Can I tell you the other thing? I'm glad you brought Providence. It's really funny.
You don't know who the most unlucky team is?
Is there like a flip to that? I guess there is. Yeah. Who is it?
Yeah, I think it's like Texas Southern, who played like every non-conference team they played was a Power 5 opponent.
Let's say Sorry, unlucky when
They
you
lost
schedule
all of them. They
when you
lost all of those
when you
non-conference.
schedule a Titan caliber off
Yeah.
non-conference. That happens. I'll tell you one thing that I did take away that was hilarious was that every other ranked team outside the top 10 managed to win. A couple of highlights of that, obviously Providence, who by the way won the Big East regular season with that win. Number 12
Good for them.
UCLA and
Good for the
13
Friars.
Wisconsin. Wisconsin won as well. So basically, the AP top 10 is just going to be flipped on its head, and I can't wait. Um, let's let's talk about this really quick because I think it's important. Is really quickly the most love him or hate him. Joe Lenardi, Bracketology was released this morning at 8 a.m. on March 1st, as it always is. And it's worth mentioning that right now, this is who the bubble teams are. And we can look at this because we were talking about I just think it's worth mentioning because we're really close to the tournament. We might as well look at this in a week and a half and basically laugh or not. Last four buys, which by the way, I'm really confused on how he does this, but like last four buys, Creighton, San Francisco, Wake Forest, and Michigan. What does he mean by buys in that case? I know the in, out, and out.
That is the last four teams that do not go to Dayton, Ohio for the first four.
Okay. I'm glad you clarified that because he used to not do it that way.
Mhm.
He used to do in, out, and out. Like you get what I'm saying. So the last four, he thinks Creighton gets in, which by the way, I'm not high on Creighton. San Fran, we mentioned. I think San Fran's really good. Wake Forest, ACC is just really confusing me. The fact that they would get in like that. Michigan's going to have to win out and win the tournament or win a couple games in their tournament convincingly to me. Last four in, and this is why I brought this up. The last four in here are Memphis, San Diego State, Indiana, and Rutgers. Talk about lucky teams. Rutgers Rutgers gets a lot of bounces their way, and they've won a lot of those games, but I think a lot of theirs were just they catch a team on a double night or they catch a team on a bad week. They've
There's
caught a
no
lot of
double
teams,
nights
not double
in
nights,
college basketball.
the equivalent of the fact they catch a bunch of teams
Yeah.
at the wrong times. Any thoughts on the last four in before we move on?
Nope. I think some of them are going to have their hearts broken this week when teams that aren't supposed to win these small tournaments win instead of the team that would get in at large. So.
Correct. Based on what you just said, first four out is Loyola Chicago. They're always just going to be there. They're always going to be.
They get in, they're going to make a run, but
always right.
Ramblers,
BYU,
Valley.
BYU. Which the reason I also noticed as I brought this up was we were mentioning the BYU, San Fran, St. Mary's, and Gonzaga things. In this case, it looks like he has those San Fran and then the BYU piece we were talking about is the weird one. Oregon, the Ducks, SMU, and then the next four out after that, which doesn't ultimately matter right now. It'll matter in a couple of days.
Better win your tournament, Chief.
But it's VT, Florida, St. Bonaventure. Sad to see the Bonnies there, and then Dayton. So obviously that could literally change.
They could get home court if they get it.
Yeah, right. All right. I guess, I don't know why I'm transitioning trivia because it's your week. So trivia.
We go. Shout out to the North Carolina Tar Heels no longer being on the bubble after a big win against Syracuse last night. Feeling a little bit better today on that front. Trivia. Yes. All right, Trevor. Today, you have another chance to tie. For everyone, the score is 12-6. Trevor's still down 6, and there's an opportunity for 6 points. This past Saturday, 7 of the top 10 teams in college basketball lost. That was the most that have lost on a single day in the top 10 in NCAA history. The next most to have lost on a single day was 6. The last time that happened was February 4th, 2017, when 6 top 10 teams lost on the same day. For each of those teams you can name that lost on February 4th, 2017, you get a point. You get 12 guesses. You can get hints. However, if you want me to give you a hint, you have to give up one of your guesses for that hint. That is the rule that I'm setting in place. 12 guesses that you can take with no hints, 6 right answers. Every correct answer, you get a point. Going to give you a chance to just rack them up so we can close this gap, make it a little more interesting. I will give you hints, but you're going to have to give up guesses to get there. We'll see how you play it. This should be fun.
All right. Clarify the date one more time. February 4th,
February 4th,
2017.
2017.
And
Six
then
top 10 teams lost on that Saturday.
6 top 10. Okay. All right. So if we're thinking, and I'll just go ahead and start. So if we're thinking in terms of teams that were in the top 10 that have a tendency to lose games in basically February to March, I have to just go ahead and get Duke out of the way because I think Duke lost at some point in there. Um, who cares if
Give
I'm
me a
wrong?
second. I'm going to pull up college hoops reference for the other teams so that I can reference all games that kind of happen in that area to give some context as we
That would
talk.
be lovely. So Duke is my first official guess while you're pulling that up.
Okay. So February 4th, 2017, the Duke Blue Devils were ranked 21st in the AP poll ranking. On February 4th, they defeated the Pittsburgh Panthers 72-64 at home. So that's incorrect.
Okay. Who was on that 27 Duke team to be ranked that far? Oh my gosh, that
2017.
2017. That's what I'm getting.
It's the
It was pre-Marvin Bagley.
it was the Kennard days.
Oh geez. Oh,
Kennard and Allen.
no wonder they were 24th. Okay, whatever. Just move on from Duke. I'm mad. Let's
Kennard and
go.
Allen, I think. Yeah.
Oh gosh, 2017. Why does that year not? I'm gonna give up a.
So it's the year the UNC won the national championship. Says fun facts for the
Which would
listeners.
not be a reason I should guess UNC. Uh, I will say this though.
Untrusting.
I am gonna relinquish my a guess, but I'm gonna be strategic here. We're talking about a 6 point deficit, and I'm
Mhm.
trying to be strategic. I am relinquishing a guess for a hint, and I'm gonna ask for the hint. I'm gonna ask for what the hint is.
Okay.
Can you tell
Wait.
me how? Hold on. Can you tell me how many ACC teams it was?
Oh,
I'm relinquishing
okay.
a guess for a hint.
So that is
I
the hint you want. Yeah, okay.
correct.
I do
I
it.
like it.
One.
Strategic. Oh, brother.
One ACC team lost that day. That was in the top 10.
I should have asked for a different conference. I'm such an idiot. All right. The Shambles of the Big East. Villanova, I believe, is a team that might have lost that day. Villanova.
The Villanova Wildcats. They were coming off national championship the year before in 2016. In February of 2017, the Villanova Wildcats were ranked 4th in the country on their way to being the #1 overall seed in that tournament. That day, they defeated the St. John's, whatever they are, New York, 92-79.
Did you just say the St. John's, New York?
St. John's, New York, whatever they are. I don't know what they're.
Oh, God.
What are they? The Johnnies? They might be the Johnnies.
Our guest next week is from New York. He's gonna have a fit with that one.
I didn't
Wow.
say the St. John's, New York's. So that's 3 guesses gone. Given
I actually don't. Shame on both of us.
Yeah, Nova was the #1 overall seed. Lost, I think, in the second round. I want to say to Florida that year. I remember that tournament very vividly.
Wow, I'm really disappointed in both of us for not knowing the St. John's thing. That just shows how young we are because they haven't been good in our lifetime.
Is it the Johnnies?
I don't think it is, but look it up. Just something red. No, that's Rutgers.
Might be red, yeah.
Red something, but like
Red Storm.
Storm.
There you go.
I knew it was something weird.
I'm sorry, St. John's fans. I really.
It's okay. There's a lot of them too, by the way. There's a ton of them.
They played MSG. It's pretty awesome.
All right, it's got to be Virginia then. Carolina was the national champion. You wouldn't have given me that free hint. It's got to be Virginia, right?
The Virginia Cavaliers lost on February 4th, 2017. But, no, I'm just kidding. They were ranked 9th in the country.
Wow. Okay, they were barely there. Woo.
They lost to the Syracuse Orange, 66-62.
2 things. I think I remember that game. And second of all, that is why I asked that hint, because now I know I can completely eliminate the ACC. I did this really strategically because I'm playing no games. I am making this comeback.
Like you're on the board.
Look, I am making this, and I'm talking about today. I'm making this comeback at some point in this season.
You're
and this
4
is
guesses
the start.
deep, so you have 8 more. You can ask as many hints as you want. They just burn guesses.
This is the part where I'm like, okay, so it's obviously, and I'm going to look at the Big 12, Big 10, whatever, but you have to look at the rest of the country and go, okay, I don't know who the rankings were, right? But I can at least go, I know that the Big 10 and Big 12 have been really good the last couple of years. I'm going to go ahead and get this guess out of the way because I can't remember what year they were really good. And the reason I'm bringing this up because shout out to a former Michigan Wolverine, Nick Stauskas, as of recording this, just dropped 57 in the G League for the Grand Rapids Gold. So
Hey,
I am
Stauskas.
I am using that as a free guess. I'm going to guess the Michigan Wolverines. I don't think it's right, but that's just, I want to get that one out of my head.
Michigan. In 2018, the next year, the Michigan Wolverines would go on to be national runners-up in the
Ah,
NCAA tournament.
I knew it was one of those.
I don't think they played on February 4th, 2017.
Of
Definitely
course
not
they
the
didn't.
top 10 teams to lose.
Of course they didn't.
Um, let's see if they were ranked top 10 like the day before.
Trying to think of what hints you would give me while you're looking that up. I'm not asking for one. I'm just trying to think of like, would you give me some crazy, stupid, generic hint?
I had one prepared for if you didn't ask for a specific one.
Do you have one prepared? Do
Yeah,
I
I
just
have one hint
do I
prepared.
let you do I just sacrifice a guess? Because if I sacrifice, I'm not going for perfect here. I'm going
No.
for as many as I can get, and I think the
Mhm.
hints are more valuable. So if you have that one prepared, it means you thought it through. I'm gonna take another guess relinquish, so I'm down to 10 as well. Right?
And you want my hint.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. That's a good one.
Okay. So that one knocks off. So, by the way, with this one, you are now 6 guesses deep.
That's fine.
It's number 6. All right. The hint is the more things change, the more they stay the same.
I'm an idiot for giving up that guess. More things change. Oh, Kentucky.
Correct. The Kentucky Wildcats lost on February 4th, 2017. They were ranked in the top 10 that day.
Was that where you were going with it? Is that like, I mean, am
So
I?
the Kentucky Wildcats were ranked 8th in the country.
Oh,
They traveled down to the swamp in Gainesville, Florida, and lost 88-66. I mean, they got destroyed by the Gators.
all right. So I guess you'll tell me afterwards what that team meant because I
Yeah,
guess
I'm
I
not going to
just
be able
really
to
want to.
clarify it anymore
Yeah,
for you.
that's fine. No big deal.
That was
Let's
just what it
go
was.
with again. The more they stay the same, things change, consistencies. I guess Kansas is probably my other guess.
On February 4th, 2017, the Kansas Jayhawks were ranked 3rd in the country. They hosted the Iowa State Cyclones.
They did lose this
And
game.
in overtime, the
They
Cyclones
lost.
won 92-89
I remember
in
that.
OT. The
Iowa
Jayhawks
State. That was Georges Niang.
fell.
I'm pretty sure that was a Georges Niang led team. I'm 90%
No,
sure.
he was
Oh,
a few years earlier.
oh well, man, my timeline is terrible. Um, okay, so who would have been?
You got 3 points. Like you've cut the trivia score to 12-9. If you get nothing else, this has already been a profitable day for you. You got 4 more guesses and or hints.
I'm in that weird part now, though. I have to do guesses because if I give up any more guesses, I'm just cutting into my potential there.
Yeah.
So,
Three
oh,
more
that's lovely.
teams, 4 more guesses.
Especially since your hint, like, I guess it technically helped me because Kentucky and Kansas are both the more they whatever, right? Stupid hint. I'm mad. Bit, I'm thinking. I'm focusing on the Big 12 for a second
Call it
because
stupid, but you just got 2 points.
yeah, whatever. So I'm targeting a certain like team that would probably be good or teams like Big 12 top handful of teams is what I'm trying to do. The problem is the Big 12. It's kind of like Kansas, Baylor, and everyone else. I'm just looking this up, by the way. I'm just looking up Big 12 teams. Like
Mm-hmm.
we've done that with NBA teams before. I did not realize West Virginia was so bad. I used them as the example in the college hoops corner earlier. They're 3-14 in conference play. I had no idea they were so bad. They're the worst team in their conference, by the way. They're worse than Kansas State this year. I digress. Ew, that's so nasty. Okay, I'm trying to think because the only thing from 2017 that's killing me is Carolina won. They played. I remember some of the teams they played, but like that doesn't help me in this situation. Uh, all right, let's see. The Big Ten Conference. I'm shifting to the Big Ten, realizing that the Big 12 is useless in this scenario. So, sorry, Big 12. Michigan wasn't right. That's interesting. Purdue wasn't that good yet. The more they stand. Is Sparty? I don't. That wasn't a guess. It had to have been Wisconsin or Sparty, because when was Frank Kaminsky drafted? They were really
Frank
good.
Kaminsky was drafted
Oh, the
in
Hornet, yeah.
2015.
Ooh, so this would have been 2 years after Kaminsky, and he was the peak of the Wisconsin basketball top 10 era. So, that's good. I'm glad that my co-host is a Hornets fan. That really just saved me from guessing Wisconsin.
And that's just because I remember the Duke-Wisconsin national title game that year.
That's true. That's true. Um, let's go with Sparty because I think it's a good guess. I'm to the point where any point is a good point. So, and it's obviously what 12-8. So I'm within clawing distance now. Let's do
12 to
Sparty.
9.
12-9. Sorry, yeah, Sparty.
Sparty doesn't look like they played that day.
I keep picking teams that literally didn't play a game that day. What are the odds of that? Like, who cares, man? Oh, so mad at myself.
Yeah, I don't know how good they were at the time, but Sparty's not one of those.
All right.
3 guesses remain. And/or hints.
All right, I'm leaving the Big Ten too. So. I've left both. Like, I've completely was in, and now I'm completely out of both of those. So we are now into the SEC. We are in football country, which lately has been really good basketball country. The problem is Kentucky's the best team and everyone else sucks. I can't figure it out. Oh, I'm mad at myself. All right. 2017. Tennessee was pretty good for a little while. I wonder if it was Oh, I shouldn't do that. That was
Vanderbilt?
That was mean. I shouldn't have done that. I did that on purpose. I left the Vander and just let it be. Whatever. That was mean. I'm sorry. Sorry, Vanderbilt fans.
Ever been top 10 in basketball in their history?
You know what? If there's a Vanderbilt fan that loves this segment, please send us a tweet.
I think their women's team's good.
Please send us a tweet. If
the Commodores
out there. All right. I'm leaving the SEC. I've officially left 4 conferences. I'm
on stay in the SEC long.
I know. I'm on the Pac-12 now. Let's do it. All right. Pac-12. Pac-12 teams. Let's do this. All right. I shouldn't have to look that up. Oh my God. I think they were all bad. Oh no. Oh. All right. Let's go with Arizona. I crapped on them earlier. Arizona.
On February 4th, 2017, the Arizona Wildcats entered the day ranked 5th in the country. They would travel to Eugene, Oregon to play the Ducks, who were ranked 13th. They proceeded to lose by 27 points to the Ducks in Eugene, Oregon. That would end up going to the Final Four that year.
Oregon.
Fourth one right.
Oregon ends up being my friend.
I can make the point to you. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Meant that 3 of the teams were also the ones that lost this Saturday. Kansas, Arizona, Kentucky.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. Can you imagine, by the way, it could have been, okay, this tangent for a second. It could have been 8 this week because if Baylor wasn't playing Kansas and Baylor had lost on Saturday,
it
could have been 8, which is just nuts because they were 10. Anyway. Okay, so that eliminates the Oregon pick because Oregon was actually a potential pick for me and you said Arizona went on to win or make the Final Four, or was it Oregon that did?
Oregon went to the Final Four, and they were stopped by the awesome rebounding of Kennedy Meeks from the University of North Carolina.
Oh, that's right. That's one of the teams that Carolina played.
Where Jordan Bell didn't have the strength to pry that rebound away.
That's right.
Sorry, Oregon fans.
People forget about Jordan Bell, man. He was good. All right. Man, this is the wall I hit. So I know that
you had 10 guesses. You could ask for a hint prior to a final guess, or you could take your final 2 guesses. So.
I just don't like that.
The score is now 12 to 10. You're in a great spot. I mean, you have to give me a chance for 6 points next week, but we're in a good spot. This finally worked. Like, I thought it was a reasonably hard enough question, and it finally worked.
I'm just afraid of your hints. That's where I am now. Like, I really think I can. Like, I think I can tie it.
I don't have any more prepared. You'd have to just ask me a question.
Is it worth like guaranteeing me like the Pac? I think I'm out of the Pac. I think I'm leaving officially the Pac-12. All right, we're going back to another conference.
Transferring.
Yeah, we're trying. Yeah, I'm as fast as the transfer market this year. So the I mean, the fact that people are laughing at me right now probably because I'm looking at oh my God, I'm an idiot. Gonzaga. I mean, Gonzaga. That's a guess. I have to do it because I think that's right.
Yeah, let's log it in. The Gonzaga Bulldogs had probably their best season in 2017 they've ever had in the history of their franchise. Funny, more in the case of the more things change, the more they stay the same. The Bulldogs were ranked first in the country in February 4th, 2017, where they hosted Santa Clara at home in Gonzaga, and they won that game by 35 points against Santa Clara. They would go on to the national championship game where they'd be the runner-up, losing to the eventual champion North Carolina Tar Heels.
Can I tell you why I don't feel bad about that, though?
Yeah.
Because if that had been right, I would have been laughingstock number one. We talked about them today, 2017. Even you even referenced 2017, the Zach Collins teams. Like I would have been public enemy number one. So I'm really glad that I got that guess out of the way. The problem is I now have to make a guess because I can't give up a hint now.
Yeah, that wouldn't help you at all.
I wish I had went with hint.
Table.
I wish I went with hint and then guess Gonzaga. I'm really mad at myself now. So now I have nothing to lose. I'll take 12-10, and I'm going to take my ball and go home. So, Big Ten. Let's go back to the Big Ten for a second. Because I guess Wisconsin already. Illinois. That would have been before Kofi Cockburn. It would have been the year before his freshman year. I'm trying to timeline. You can laugh. I'm trying to timeline.
No, just Kofi Cockburn. He's a funny guy.
Hey, Illinois could be filthy this year. I think he's a underrated player in that.
He's their best player. What do you mean underrated?
Underrated. Sorry, they're an underrated player in the tournament. I mean, sorry. God, Indiana hasn't been good since Victor Oladipo, and then that shot they hit against Kentucky that I'll never.
That's even further back.
I was watching that live. That was one of my favorite college basketball games growing up.
That was against Anthony Davis. Played for that Kentucky team.
Well, man,
you remember who hit the shot? Just as fun.
True. I remember it being like a 6'10" guy, Welling something maybe, or like
he didn't go on anything. His name was Christian Watson.
I knew it started with
that, but
I knew it started with a W. That's all I could remember.
It was one of the great moments because like that shot hit the bottom of the net, and like there were like 500 people on the court within like 15 seconds. It was
probably one of the first. It was probably one of the first non-ACC / Carolina Duke court stormings that I can remember. Seriously, like of just period. It reminds me a lot of like the Jenkins shot too.
I think it was like that Kentucky team was so dominant. It was just such a huge thing when they lost.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Jenkins shot. Sorry, but it does a lot.
It's okay. We won the title the next year.
Yes, true. Oh, wait, Big East. Hold on. Am I forgetting a Big East team that year? Wait. This might have just jogged my memory. Wow. Okay. I do. Oh, my gosh, Josh. Last tangent. Georgetown is 0-17 in conference this year, and they've lost 18 straight games.
Holy Patrick Ewing said that he would like to keep his job. I'm sure he'd like to.
He did. They officially said they wouldn't fire him as of this year.
Oh, they did? Good for Patrick.
They announced that like 2 weeks
ago.
Former
Hornets head assistant coach, so shout out.
I looked at the report and I went, I guess it's not his fault. I
like Patrick Ewing.
I just don't know.
Once again, he was a Hornets coach. I'm a loyalist.
All right. Creighton was really good for like a handful of years off and on multiple times. Let's go with the Creighton Blue Jays.
That's your answer?
I don't have anything to lose.
Okay.
Yes, it's my answer.
On February 4th, 2017, the Creighton Blue Jays, the ranked Creighton Blue Jays, hosted the Xavier Musketeers. They lost that game 82-80. However, the Creighton Blue Jays were ranked 22nd. So,
come on!
Or went on that.
Oh,
sorry, that was just a perfect way to go in that direction. Great job. I mean, it's 12-10. You did really well. I think it worked. Finally, we're able to give you points.
I won't say that the weight is entirely off my shoulders, but I will say that like I do feel like a little bit of breathing room. And I'll just tell you right now, I'm gonna make you like guess every 60th overall pick next week. I don't care what the topic
Isaiah
is.
Thomas.
No, he doesn't count.
Which,
by the way, you know what? That was actually a really accidental transition. Isaiah Thomas today. I told Josh we had to bring it up. Isaiah Thomas was signed by the Charlotte Hornets for a 10-day contract today. Woohoo! Charlotte Hornets.
He's averaging 35 in the G League, so I guess we'll give it a shot.
Look, he deserves.
We don't really have a point guard slot open. I wish we would have gone after a small forward, considering we have 3 of those on the injury list right now. But
yeah, he is deserving of some roster spot. The problem is, teams.
I like the guy. Like he's a genuinely good guy that you want to give a good opportunity to.
100%. Teams are afraid to give a 30-plus-year-old, 5'9" injury-prone guy a contract. But at the end of the day, he's a good story. You have to have him on it. He's a great guy. Like if he were to win a title with a team, kind of like oh my gosh, Steve Kerr did it with the Spurs, but there was another guy that did it with the Spurs. T-Mac. T-Mac won. I'm not comparing them. I'm just saying like T-Mac won a championship with the Spurs as like their 11th man. If Isaiah Thomas did that, I would be absolutely thrilled. Like I would be so happy for him. So maybe it's in Charlotte this year.
Oh,
So
let's recap the stuff on trivia.
do
The correct answers you got: the Virginia Cavaliers, the Kentucky Wildcats, the Arizona Wildcats, and the Kansas Jayhawks.
That's confusing.
All lost. I believe this is the year before Virginia lost to UMBC.
I believe it was.
But the other two teams that you did not get, you should not have veered away from the Big 12 Conference because they both reside there.
Hold on. Can I guess now that I know that?
No. In February 4th, 2017, the West Virginia Mountaineers were ranked 7th in the country when they hosted the Oklahoma State Cowboys and lost 82-75. And the Baylor Bears were ranked number 2 overall and lost to the Kansas State Wildcats 56-54 on their home court in Waco, Texas.
I just dragged West Virginia, and I didn't say that. I would have never gotten West Virginia.
They're bad
Baylor.
this year. In 2017, they were great.
So Baylor lost to Kansas State, and West Virginia lost to who?
Oklahoma State.
I feel like I vaguely remember Baylor being. Who was on that Baylor team? That's my question. Gosh, who was on that 2017 Baylor team? Yeah, that's why I would have never gotten those two. Honestly, like I could have because of this year. You know, this things stay the same. Baylor, obviously, you hinted that kind of.
They were top 10, so it's kind of one of those things stay the same. Yeah, I realized there was a lot of things that, despite the parody of college basketball, a lot of stuff was very similar about that date.
I'm looking it up now because that roster, I have to just know. It's going to kill me if I don't know. So their roster in 2017-2018, Baylor was, I'm not pronouncing his name. So far, I have not recognized a single player. This team was ranked what?
2.
Okay, I'll just read the names. Tell me if any of these ring a bell. Joe Lual Aquila Jr., Jake Lindsley, Mario Kegler, Tyson Jolly, Mark Vital.
Jolly sounds familiar.
Manu Lecamonte, Nuni Omoto,
I don't trust your
King
ability to pronounce
McClure,
these names.
Tristan Clark, Jonathan Davis, Taryn Maston, Freddie Gillespie.
Gillespie.
Gillespie, I'm pretty sure there's a guy in the NBA draft community that we know with that last name. Sorry. And Obim Okeke. Scott Drew was still the coach, I guess, if that means anything. This team was number...
This is a reminder that a few years later, you'll often forget the names of the players that were actually studs in college basketball. Do you remember who Gonzaga's best player that year that was? I've said it during this podcast.
Zach Collins and then that other guy, I can't remember.
Zach Collins was the 6th man. Who was the best player? Articles about him everywhere.
Couldn't tell you.
Szymek Karnowski.
No.
Doesn't matter anymore.
I just can't believe
Big beard, just massive Polish dude. The Hammer.
I just can't believe that this team was... Hold on, 2018-19 you mean? Or 16-17?
2016-17.
16-17. I was looking at 17-18. That's why we were confused on that roster.
The roster still might not be better the next year.
They were like bottom 5 in their conference that year. 26, the year I just read. That's why. 26-2017 basketball. Hold on. We got it.
The 2 NBA players that came out of that team from 2016-17 were Jonathan Motley and Ishmael Wainwright.
Rico Gathers, too, who was picked by the Cowboys in the 6th round. That's it. Taurean Prince. That's it. Taurean, that was...
I knew they got picked by the Cowboys in the 6th round.
Uh-huh. Did you not know that? Yeah, Rico Gathers. Played basketball for Baylor, yeah. Tight ends. He was a tight end for the Cowboys for a little while. Yeah, Taurean Prince. That's a good one. Okay, so that's good to remember. I'm glad that we readdressed this because I remember a couple of those guys. All right,
seeing Taurean on this roster.
It says he was... Oh, no, he departed. Sorry. Yeah, I read that wrong. He was a departure. So, yeah, it would have been Jonathan Motley. All right. Cool.
Their best player, it looks like, was Jonathan Motley. Yeah.
All right. Well, shout out to Baylor, I guess. I've been out that way to Waco. It's a gorgeous place. I hope to get to a game there one day. So, all right. Shameless plug on the way out, because why the heck not? Twitter at 2pointers, facebook.com/2pointers podcast, TikTok and Instagram are at the 2pointers podcast. And once again, I'll just say this now, we're having a guest on next week, hopefully talking college basketball. It'll be after Duke UNC on Saturday. It'll be the beginning of conference tournaments, or at least the ones that are the big ones. We'll just overall touch on the college basketball scene right before the next week will be Selection Sunday.
Question: should the winner of two things between me and you, our personal competition on our brackets for the NCAA tournament, should trivia points be on the line for the winner?
I'm fine with anything as I'm down 12-10, but I also, at the same time, really like the authentic, old school nature of this trivia segment. I'm like an ACC basketball.
What old school nature? We invent new rules every week.
You invented one this week.
I invented a new rule this week.
Which, by the way, I think is a really great rule. I think
it was great. Yeah, right. But we invent new rules every week. This is not we don't agree to these ahead of time.
True.
We're making this up as we go along in case anybody else thought it was any different.
Should they be on the line? Sure. Should people tell us what they think on Twitter? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you guys could let us know, that would be great.
And also, one thing I want to pitch that we didn't do well enough last year, but hopefully now that we are more than a year into doing this, we're going to have an open 2-pointers podcast bracket pool.
We're talking about it now, so you remember.
Gets to come on the podcast. Guest on an episode after the end of the tournament. Talk about whatever you want, really, with us. Yeah. Just hang out.
It'll be a
surprise to the winner. You get to come on the podcast if you beat us.
There could even be a small trophy shop trophy involved that says you won the 2 points.
Well, I still haven't got my trivia trophy yet. So.
All right, look, this year we will address it. This year we'll pretend that we didn't. Then you can do it. No, this year the winner. We'll set this up now. The winner of this year's trivia will begin the trophy scenario, and then we'll just etch another year in it each time if they win again. Let's do that. It'll be cool for social media too. People.
When I win, it'll have 2. We're gonna put 2 notches on.
Yeah, I'll make sure I fix it if that's the case. Cool. So yeah, that's a good point. Just make sure that you guys obviously enter that. We would love to have the interaction and just see. I remember vaguely I did pretty well last year. I actually looked at the little email that they sent.
I did not do well.
I looked at mine because they send you an email right before the new year. Yeah. Like this, they sent me one last week. It was like, look at your brackets from last year as you prepare for this year's.
Yeah, it's coming that time where everybody downloads ESPN Tournament Challenge.
Yeah, and it was really cool because I didn't think ESPN was sending that kind of email out. And I looked, and my best bracket last year was our 2-pointers podcast bracket. I was in the 94th percentile of correctness, and I was like in the top 700,000, which isn't a lot ultimately. It's actually not that good. But in our 94th percentile, and you know what killed me, by the way, was San Diego State.
Yeah. What killed me is I didn't believe in Baylor.
I didn't either.
Won the national championship.
We both got the national championship other side right, but
yeah, we both had Gonzaga making it. So. I did not believe in Baylor. I'm sorry, Baylor. I was wrong.
Baylor's gotten a lot of press. Baylor fans, please follow us on Twitter if you haven't already. Cool. Let's get out of here.
This has been the 2-pointers podcast. I'm Josh. It's March Madness. Let's have fun.
And I'm Trevor.
And we will see you in Conference Championship Week. Bye.